Hi, I'm Olivia, a custody advisor at Wall Street Prison Consultants. Today we're going to discuss the safety valve sentencing reductions and how it applies to first-time offenders in criminal narcotics cases. A mandatory minimum is a predetermined sentence which the court must give to a person convicted of a crime. A mandatory minimum sentence applies automatically, no matter what the unique circumstances of the offender or the offense are. There are mandatory minimums for many crimes, but they most often apply to gun and drug crimes. Mandatory minimums are triggered by only a few facts, usually just the type and weight of the drug involved, or the possession or presence of a gun. A safety valve is one of the only ways out of receiving a mandatory minimum sentence. Safety valves are laws created by Congress that allow courts to give an offender less time in prison than the mandatory minimum requires, but only if the person or his offense meets certain special requirements. The law was created in 1994, when Congress realized that many first-time nonviolent drug offenders were receiving mandatory minimums that did not fit them or their crimes. The federal safety valve is a strict, 5-part test and requires 5 requirements of the law to be met. The court must sentence a person below the mandatory minimum, generally by using the federal sentencing guidelines to create a sentence that fits the offender and his crime. Here is an example. A person is convicted of selling 28 grams of crack cocaine. The federal mandatory minimum sentence for this offense is 5 years. However, the person meets all 5 requirements of the federal safety valve. 1. No one was harmed during the offense. 2. The person has little or no history of criminal convictions. 3. The person did not use violence or a gun. 4. The person was not a leader or organizer of the offense, and 5. The person told the prosecutor all that he knows about the offense. The court will use the sentencing guidelines and give the person a sentence below the mandatory minimum, for example, 3 years in prison instead of 5. Example number 2. If a first-time offender is convicted of selling a substance containing 500 grams of methamphetamine, they are exposed to 10-year mandatory minimum sentence. But if they were to meet all the criteria of the safety valve as a first-time offender, they would be eligible to receive a sentence of 70 months. The primary purpose of the federal criminal sentencing safety valve is to address the disproportionate sentencing outcomes that can result from mandatory minimum sentences. Mandatory minimums often do not take individual circumstances into account and can lead to overly harsh sentences for offenders who may have played a minor role in the offense or who have cooperated with authorities. For more information and assistance on qualifying for the safety valve, you should consider hiring a prison consultant.